Hey, good morning, everybody. We are here as a private practice section National Student Special Interest Group interview with Dr. Jeff Moore. On the call today, we also have TJ Janicky. My name is Trent Salo, and I am the Director of Communications for the Student Special Interest Group. TJ is the Vice President. How you guys doing this morning?
Doing great, man. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Doing well.
TJ, I have to give you props. TJ's on the West Coast right now, and so he is up at 4 a.m. to be on this call, so we appreciate it. Jeff, we also appreciate you taking time out of your busy work schedule to talk shop with us. We have a lot of questions for you, and we're excited to hear your insight. So just to introduce Jeff briefly, then I'll let him talk a little bit more about his background and his career thus far. Jeff grew up in Kingsford, Michigan, the Upper Peninsula. Beautiful place if you ever want to go somewhere to visit. A little cold though. Anyways, so he is works with his brother actually at Back in Motion, and Jeff is also the owner of the Institute of Clinical Excellence, a continuing education business, and is very active in promoting the profession via social media and reaching out to students as well. Jeff, we're excited to have you. Can you just share a little bit of your background and career thus far?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Trent. Yeah, so I graduated from the University of St. Augustine back in 2008. After that, I spent a couple years working in private practice out in Bozeman, Montana. I worked at a company that's still there and thriving. It's Excel Physical Therapy out in Bozeman, great clinic group out there. So I worked out there for a few years and then ultimately had kids and wanted to get back my family. Like you said, my brother had this clinic going for a couple years, so I came back here and joined him about 3.5 years ago. During that time, when I got back here, I started the Evidence in Motion Fellowship. Prior to that, I had completed the manual therapy certification through Stanley Paris. I had completed the spinal manipulation certification through James Dunning. And then I started the Evidence in Motion Fellowship program in the summer of what would have been 2012. So I'll wrap that fellowship work up in July, Trent, and I'll be all done with that. And then hoping to really expand my teaching opportunities with those guys and perhaps expand my own company a bit. So a year and a half ago, I started the Institute of Clinical Excellence. It's a small continuing education company. We offer courses in Chicago. I partner with a couple groups down there, and then we offer a few courses up here in the upper Midwest. Get a nice group of guys from Green Bay and all over the UP that come to our classes. I'm blessed to have a few awesome teachers with me. Eric Chaconis down there from St. Augustine helps me out. Jason London out from Bozeman, Montana, incredible sports rehab physical therapist. He actually works for the U.S. ski and snowboard team, so he jumps in with me too and teaches some of the sports classes, the injured running classes. So we got a great group of courses, man. It's exciting to go around and teach people, and the students are always jacked up and excited, and you get back to clinic and you're just that much more motivated. So the teaching thing's been awesome. I've been really lucky to have some opportunities to teach with Evidence in Motion, work with Tim Fearon, work with some of those, work with Rob Wayner. And those guys are just an absolute fountainhead of information. So so far in my career, bumping shoulders with some pretty amazing people, and just having an absolute blast with it. Between the private practice, teaching company, and everything we do with students, man, it's really thriving.
Good. Well, that's awesome, Jeff. Well, you definitely have an extensive background, so that's great. So this morning we have about 30 minutes and a couple topics we want to hit on first, and then we'll finish with just some questions or just some conversation type things. The first one being the real world. So in our emails, Jeff, you had discussed you wanted to share some insight into the real world, which you feel a lot of students sometimes as new grads, they get out and they're like, what the heck, this isn't what I expected. So what are just some things that students or new grads have the hardest time adjusting to that you feel in the real world?
You know, I think one of the big disservices, Trent, so we take a lot of doctorate students here. I've got 12 doctorate students scheduled for 2015. So we see a lot of these guys come through and get an idea of their expectations and sort of how that compares and contrasts with what's actually going on, as you said, out in the real world, so to speak. And one of the big disservices, I think, is that students don't get a good background on what they can expect to make financially and how much work they're going to have to put in to make what it is they need to make. And I think it's really, for those of you guys who are, a year from graduation or less, I would be finding those 2 or 3 communities that you want to be in, and I'd be doing some really serious investigation about, what can I expect to make, and then doing your own homework. I find a lot of these kids come to me for looking for a job, Trent, or coming for advice, and they'll say, well, what can I expect to make? And my first question to them is, well, what do you need to make? And they'll say, well, I don't know. And that really surprises me. So Trent and TJ and you guys, I think the most important thing first is to figure out with your student loan, with your expected cost of living, what exactly do you need to make? so that you can go out and you can start the conversation at that point. And if you combine that with a good understanding of what the community can expect to pay you, I think that your expectations are a lot more in line with the reality. So I think financially, some homework on your part, both for what you personally need to achieve and for what's reasonable in the community that you're going to, really helps to offset some of that, what can be an unpleasant reality check when you get out there. I'm not sure what your feelings are as far as your level of preparation on that, or the mentorship you've experienced sort of going into that position.
It's actually one of the reasons, or one of the goals that we have for the student special interest group for the private practice section is collaboratively as a group, as our executive board, we said, hey, we don't get a lot of business education. Now, we can do our homework and figure out how much we need to make, but going the other way and saying, okay, well, how are clinicians paid specifically in a private practice section, or in a clinic, private practice clinic? How does all that work? How does it flow from getting money from insurance or cash-based and the overhead and things like that? A lot of students get out of school and they don't understand how that works, and so I think having a better understanding of that, which is one of our goals as a student special interest group, I think students can better figure out, okay, this is what I can expect, this is how the clinic is paid, and then having that combined with, okay, what am I going to be paying in loans and what is the cost of living?
Yeah. Yeah, because one important thing to keep in mind is when I have a lot of people say, well, I'm willing to work for X amount of money, and a lot of times they're trying to say, well, I offer value by not being paid much. I'm willing to go out there and work for less to have a great job, and that's really well intentioned, and I appreciate that philosophy. But it only works if you can survive on it. It's not any good for the clinic you're going to if a year into your job you say, hey, I can't make it on this amount of money, I'm going to have to bail. It's a lot better idea to go in organized and say, hey, this might not be what you're hoping to pay me, but I can tell you that if you do pay me this, I know I can get by, and I know I can be a long-standing employee at that level of money. So no use going in there and trying to sell yourself as a value item if it's not going to be a sustainable idea.
I think that's a great way to put it, because I'm graduating in May, and I really wasn't sure about how to go about. I think that topic of negotiating a salary is pretty frightening, especially as a new grad, because we offer something to the table, and I guess you have to evaluate your skills to find out what sets you apart. But we kind of want that first job, and we want it quickly. So I think most of us are pretty apt to just taking the first thing we're offered. But I think that some places would appreciate that you kind of set your value and tell them what you need to survive. So that's kind of a better way of looking at it, I think, the way that you kind of framed it. So definitely useful information there too.
Yeah, TJ, as an owner, I would much rather have a young guy or gal show up at my door and say, hey man, I know you've paid your last few employees around 60 grand. I'm sitting on some heavy student loans. I did the math. In order for me to make it and be comfortable, I'm going to have to make between $67,000 and $69,000 a year. To be entirely honest with you, TJ, the extra $7 grand is not that big of a deal from our side, but I'm looking at a kid and I'm saying, this person's got it together. That really actually becomes a selling point for you, because I'm thinking, that's not an easy thing to ask for. And this person just looked me straight in the face and was honest with me and knew what they needed and told me, hey, if you can get me this, I can deliver. Well, man, I'm in. That is much more appealing to me than someone who comes in and says, oh, yeah, no, I don't mind. I'll work for $55,000 a year. And I'm sitting there thinking, no, you won't. I know where you went to school. You talked about your student loan. You're never going to make it. And so I know right away you're disorganized. You don't have your site set up. And that's in contrast to somebody who comes in very organized, very clear plan of action. I actually find that quite appealing, even though it means I lose a few grand off the top. I know that kind of person's going to make it up for me in the long run.
Good stuff, Jeff. Well, let's go down that marketing path and say, when you're in interaction with students, do you feel that they market themselves and express the qualities and what they can bring to the table well? And if not, why do you think they don't do that as well, or why do you think students today don't market themselves or express their brand as well?
Well, students are inherently limited because they don't have a very wide skill set. So it's hard for you guys. I mean, it would really be arrogance on your part to come out and say, hey, I'm really, really solid in these 3 or 4 areas. You don't have that level of experience yet. What students can really sell is two things. Number one, you guys can sell your youth, your vigor, your energy. You can sell that. That's a very, very valuable thing inside of a clinic. You can come in with a lot of energy. You can really chat up people. You're wonderful at waking up the clinic. That's a great thing. I think it's a reason a lot of people take students and a lot of people love young clinicians is you're very energetic at that point in your career. But the big sale I think you have to make early on, and if we're talking about to a practice owner, is you've got to sell your vision, right? So when you go to interview for a job, Trent, TJ, you've got to have a clear plan of action on what you can do for that company. So, for example, I know a lot of you guys are big into running. I see a lot of your tweets and stuff. Say you want to treat runners, right? I mean, if you know it's an area you're going to enjoy, you know it's a specialty you want to be a part of, it is a wonderful thing for you guys to walk into a clinic and say, listen, I've got a plan to increase the amount of runners that this clinic capitalizes on within this community. I think it's an underserved population. In the first couple years out of school, I've got 2 courses lined up I want to go to. I'm going to go to a Heiderscheid course. I'm going to go to a London course. I'm going to market that to the physician groups. I'm going to team up with the running shoe store in town. We're going to offer one public service promotional event at the library every year as a joint community, and I'm going to go forward marketing that niche brand. There's no reason you can't, as a student, come in and say what you're going to do. And I think it is a wonderful thing for a private practice owner to hear. When I've got young guys coming in saying, Jeff, if you give me a shot, here's what I'm going to do over the next 18 months. I look at that person in a very different way as far as their value for my company than I do somebody who comes in and tells me how good their grades were in school and they're going to try really hard. Right? The first guy's got something he's going to get done. The second guy just says the same thing everybody says. And so your ability to express your vision and your having a vision is just critical to the impression that you make on private practice owners.
No, that's great. I think walking the line between having the confidence but not coming in being arrogant, like you said, because we don't have an experience. We have our clinical experiences, but that's about it. So selling the youthfulness, the vigor, the excitement to get involved with the research and do these different things and maybe take up an area of the clinic that hasn't been tapped into yet in this specific market. So I think that's great advice, Jeff.
Yeah, I think that and as far as that goes too, I have a couple of friends out here who work in Portland, and some of the jobs that they've fallen into, they've kind of they've done that exact thing. They said, I'm pretty good at using social media, I'm pretty good at connecting my social network, so I want to attempt to do it for your clinic. And she's wound up actually getting time to be paid to do that, and she's been increasing the clinic's productivity dramatically over the past couple of months. So just it brought a new element to the clinic that they didn't currently have, and I think they're doing pretty well right now with that. So yeah, she brought that skill that, it's something simple that we've all been using for a while now as students, and she brought that skill to the clinic, and it worked out really well for them. So I think that's really good advice too.
That's great, TJ, and it comes back to doing your homework. Like you said, the clinic didn't have it. That was a critical piece of information. You got to figure out where you want to work and why, and then you got to figure out what they need and what you can do to plug those gaps. And that was a great example of doing just that.
Now, are there some things, Jeff, that students can do while they're still in school to be able to market themselves better once they graduate?
I think, Trent, getting good exposure to a variety of different things and figuring out what it is you really want to do, and then organizing your plan of action so that you can market that plan. I think that's the most important thing. Got guys who come out and they're like, hey, I've seen 7 or 8 things. I know this is an area that, I seem to be pretty good at right off the bat. I seem to have a knack for it. And I have a few different ideas on how I can go further in expressing that and exploiting that area, and then developing a very specific plan of action on how you intend to do it, and then taking that plan and presenting it to your possible employers. I really think it's very organizational in presenting that plan. That's what's really appealing to hear, is not a bunch of wishy-washy, hey, I'm a hard worker. We know you're a hard worker. You went through doctorate school. We get that. Everybody comes in, hey, I'm a hard worker. I have really good grades. Sometimes the really good grades almost kind of frightens you off a little bit. You wonder about the social skills, and plus everybody says that, don't say that. Don't come in and say, I loved school, I did great, I had these great letters of recommendation. Everybody has that stuff, and you've already lost me in the first minute of our conversation. What I want you to come in and tell me is what you're going to do for me. What I want to come in and hear is how cool it's going to be to allow me to watch you grow as a professional, right? I want you to come in and say, Jeff, the reason I'm here, man, is I want to do these 2 or 3 things over the next few years, and I think you're the guy to help me do it, and I'm really excited about it, and if you have a second, I want to show you my plan on how I intend to get there. That's a conversation. That's a guy I want to pay 72 instead of 58. That person has my attention. They know where they want to go. For some reason, they believe I might be able to help them get there. That is worth our time.
Absolutely. You get me fired up, Jeff, talking about this stuff.
Good, man.
So I guess the last question on this area would be, from your perspective, now working in a clinic, being the owner of the Institute of Clinical Excellence, doing all this other stuff, what do you wish you knew from maybe a business standpoint when you were a student or just a new grad? Are there certain things or pieces of advice that you would say, hey, I wish I knew that coming out of school right away, or is this some of the stuff you've already touched on?
It's some of the stuff we touched on, and I think I'm kind of preaching to the converted with you two, because again, I watch you guys on social media, but I wish I would have been even more proactive. Like, I wish I would have gotten on James Dunning earlier about an interest in teaching for him right away. I learned a little bit of that once I joined the Evidence in Motion group, and so I was more forward with my hopes and my dreams straight to the source. And I've been able to connect, I think, really well with inside of Evidence in Motion because of that. And so don't hide what you're inspired by. Don't hide where you want to go. There's not enough motivation. There's not enough drive in our profession. Don't hide what you have. So when you meet a great clinician and you watch him and you think the guy or girl is just a wizard in the clinic, and you're like, man, I want to get there. Go tell that person, hey, listen, I'm watching what you do, and that's where I want to be in 5 years. If there's anything that you think that I can do to help myself get there, I'm all ears. Just go say it. Nobody else is saying it. Everyone else is just trying to get to lunch. Go tell them, man. They'll be so excited. It'll make their job better. They're gonna look at you and say, okay, I'm gonna take a little extra time, and I'm gonna accelerate that person's growth because they care. And this is why I went into the profession. And maybe I forgot about that over the past few years. But this guy sitting here following me around room to room is reminding me. So don't hide what you want. Go tell the people. Walk up to Tim Flynn and say, dude, I'm so motivated by everything you've done. Can I just hang out with you for a bit? I want to soak up some of this stuff. Just be honest. Be honest with your aspirations. Just wear your heart on your sleeve, man. And I'm telling you, it's refreshing for those of us who've been out for 10 years and you go through some employees who care more about compensation packages than the patient, and then all of a sudden you got someone walk up to you and say, dude, I want to be really good and I'm willing to sacrifice. Can you bring me there? Yes, I'll bring you there, So be honest.
I think it's really funny that you brought up talking to Tim Flynn, because Lauren Keeley, our SIG president, it was at Manapalooza last year, actually. She walked right up to him and told him that she wanted to be just like him when she became a seasoned clinician. So I think that Trent and I and Lauren, we've all been pretty lucky in terms of, we've been hanging out with people like yourself for a while now in school, and it's been the difference in terms of developing that confidence to be able to do stuff like that. I think a lot of students currently get so lost in studying and getting good grades that they kind of miss out on developing that crucial part of becoming a professional, which is being able to, actually have a conversation and tell people exactly how you feel. So I think it's a good wake up for students to kind of say, listen, it kind of goes beyond, your straight A's in PT school. You need to take a little bit of initiative to to be more confident and to find some of those personal skills before you go out and find your first job, because it's been told to me dozens of times now that you can be the greatest clinician in the world, but if you can't have a conversation with somebody, it's not going to mean anything. If you can't connect with that patient, it really doesn't matter. So Yeah, again, I think that's really great advice, and I think that I don't know. I know at Rutgers we have a couple leadership and advocacy courses which kind of teach. For me, it was more of a confidence class than anything, in being confident in what you're saying and what you're selling. So I don't know if it needs to be something that's taught in school, or if it needs to be something that just needs to be found on your own, or if it's something that can be found through a continuing education course. But I think students need to be a little bit more proactive in terms of finding that confidence, for sure.
Yeah, and I think this leads us well into, as you're talking about, getting yourself in a position where you're hanging around the people that you know are going to develop you in the way you want to develop. When you guys are looking for your first job, I mean, I personally think the most important factor is finances. Nobody ever wants to talk about that. Everyone feels that, that the first thing should be, a long list of altruistic ideals, and that's warm and fuzzy and stuff, but it doesn't really work all that well over the long term. You've got to make sure you're getting paid what you need to pay to live comfortably so that you can thrive, so you can be in a position mentally where you can engage in your profession. So I think you've got to have your finances somewhat organized, but as soon as you've hit your baseline level of making what you need to make, the most important thing right behind it is mentorship. So if I could give you guys any advice when you're going to look for that first job, you've got to find out who on site is going to mentor you, and why they're going to mentor you, and how they're going to mentor you. And I would interview that person, and I would really hold that near and dear to my heart. And here again, I think sometimes you guys, the response to me saying that is, well, boy, I don't want to, that sounds like I'm asking a lot out of the clinic, or, I'm new and who am I to sort of make these demands, right? And I can't tell you how often the opposite is true. And so again, we talk about that the guy or gal showing up at my doorstep. When they walk in and say, Jeff, I want to get better. This is what Steve Short did, PT we hired just recently. Jeff, I want to get better. Is there somebody on staff who would be willing to commit a couple hours a week for one-on-one time to rapidly develop my professional growth? And specifically, here's the areas I want to grow in. And do you think you have someone who can help me excel in these areas? This is good stuff, right? Some people look at that as you're burdening the clinic. If the clinic thinks you're burdening them when you say something like that, it's not a clinic you want to work at. If you come to my door and say that, you've got me all jacked up, right? I mean, you're telling me that you know where you want to go, and you have a plan, and you want to work together with us to get there. I'm excited. And so you're the clinic you go to should be excited. When you go in and say, I want a mentor, who is that going to be, and can I talk with them? And you want to hear that mentor is going to truly be dedicated to your development. Because you can take all the Con Ed courses you want. I mean, I've taken a lot of Con Ed courses, and it's been great, and I've enjoyed a lot of them. There is nothing like real-time feedback in the clinic. I mean, you will progress so much faster with a good mentor 2 days a week than you will taking 20 Con Ed courses a year. Because with a mentor, you get real-time feedback. You get feedback at the moment, and that really changes your perception on the way you practice. When someone stands over your shoulder and watches you make a mistake and brings it to your attention, and brings it to your conscious awareness, you learn at a very steep curve. When you're out at a Con Ed course and you got your feet up in the back, and you probably went out on Saturday night, now you're tired on Sunday, and you're listening to sort of 2/3 of it, you just don't have the kind of learning curve that you have when you're in the clinic and someone is right there developing you as an individual and as a professional. So there is nothing you could pay me or nothing that you could offer me Con Ed-wise that would replace a dedicated mentor that had stock in my growth inside of their company.
Absolutely. That's great stuff. And a little plug for the PPS Student Special Interest Group. We're trying to facilitate a mentorship type program connecting students interested specifically in private practice or the business side of things with folks like yourself that have been there, done that, and are willing to give back to students to say, hey, I might not be in the same geographical location as you, but you can reach out to me via email. We can talk shop via cell phone, things like that, just to provide insight to the real world and to things that we might not know as students entering the profession.
Good, man.
So the last 5 minutes here, let's just touch on, I'd like to talk more, Jeff, on the branding side of things, or moving the profession forward a little bit. Following your tweets recently, I noticed that you had gotten together with some of the clinics locally and think it was a joint message that you put together with them, trying to maximize the impact to the folks in your area of, hey, we have direct access now in Michigan. Come see us off the street. Can you talk a little bit about that and why you did that with essentially your competition in the area?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's unfortunate that we view other PT colleagues as competition. I think that's a really short-sighted approach to overall growing our profession. So like you said, direct access got launched here in the area. You know, we passed that last summer, and then it was enacted January 1st of this year. And so I thought the message could be a lot stronger if I went over and gathered all of our clinic groups together and put out a message to the public. First of all, financially, we could all contribute and run the message multiple times. And beyond that, people could see that it was people respond to that well. They respond to collaborative effort, and they know that it's not necessarily a message looking to grow the profit of an individual clinic. It's a message from a profession looking to help the patient, right? And so I think I'm really surprised and disappointed. So I'll give two quick examples. I don't want to hold you up past 6:30. I'm fine. I don't have a patient until 7, but let me know, Trent, if I push my luck here. So when I was in Montana, one of the first things that Jason London and I did was we got all the PT clinics in town together for a journal club, right? So we met once a quarter. We invited all the orthopedic surgeons in the area. A couple of them actually came. So we had a large group of medical professionals, athletic trainers, and PTs. We learned a ton at that journal club. You know, we had a great diffusion of ideas, just really great collaborative effort. That journal club still goes to this day. I haven't been to Bozeman for years. When I got here, Trent, I took the same approach, man. I went over to all the other clinics, and like you said for that article, I said, guys, 11%, right? 11% of people who need physical therapy actually access it. Are we going to sit here and fight over the 11% and all of us can grab 2.8% or 3.1% or whatever that number winds up being? Or should we go ahead and capitalize on the 89% of people out there who need PT, who need our help, and don't access our services? How about we put together a message, make it really, really loud, and then all take the bounty of the 89% of people that show up at our doors who need our help, right? We're in this to help people. 89% of the people aren't getting helped. Let's reach out to them. There's plenty of meat on the bones, man. There's plenty of people out there. If they hear our message, it is far more important that we come together as a physical therapy community and make our message clearer and louder than it is that we fight each other and try to differentiate and specialize to the point of not even being able to recognize each other, diffuse our message, and wind up seeing a dramatic minority of the population. It doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, there's a reason car dealerships are all on the same street, right? Group messages are appealing, right? It's loud and it gets people's attention. And Trent, it's disappointing to me that I don't see this more often. I walked into all the other clinics in my community and I told them this. And the first thing they said was, Jeff, that sounds awesome. Here's my logo. Let me know what I can do. You just have to open the door. It's just like walking into that clinic owner and telling them what you need. It's all about being honest, right? Go over there. It makes sense when you tell the truth, and people are going to respond to it. And the guys loved it, man. And now we've got 2 or 3 more joint marketing sessions planned where it's not near as financially burdensome on any individual clinic, and we're accessing more people who need our care, which at the end of the day is what it's all about. If we do this nationwide, if we make physical therapy, if we combine together and make physical therapy the #1 common sense reflex choice for acute musculoskeletal pain in every individual community around the country, this game is over. And all we have to do is be humble enough to get together, put our differences aside, celebrate our unity, and market that to the public. And there'll be plenty of business for everybody.
Absolutely. That's one thing that we try to promote too. And really, Jeff, you tweeted, I think, a couple of days ago talking about we need to unify before we brand. And we've always talked about branding. We need to brand our profession, this and that. And I think we've had a difficult time doing that because we work in different settings and this and that, and we're almost fighting each other sometimes because we refer to each other as competition if we're in a certain area. And I like how you don't use that phrase because there's such a big chunk of the pie, the population, that we're not even tapping into. A lot to go around.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like you said, you can't brand something that isn't homogenous, right? I mean, you can't brand a product that's trying to be unique in 35 different ways. You have got to establish uniform brand pillars that everybody agrees upon. And you've got to align your marketing, right, to represent those on a consistent, targeted basis, right? But you can't do that if everyone's so busy trying to be unique and different from each other in order to divvy up that 11% yet one more way, right? It's very short-sighted. It hasn't worked until now, and it's not going to work in the future.
Jeff, what role do you see APTA membership or being involved in the APTA in this moving the profession forward?
Well, the first thing that I can say candidly about that is if you're not an APTA member, it upsets me on a very visceral level that you get to take advantage of the work that the APTA has done. So for those of you in Michigan enjoying the luxury of direct access, I am actually bothered by that fact if you have not been an APTA member during the time when they were fighting for it. So that being said, that's my feelings on membership. You have to be a member. You don't get the luxury of saving your couple $100s, and going out to dinner a few more times because you don't mind that you got students out there and first year people paying those dues, and you're going to skip that, and yet you're going to receive the luxuries of benefit. So anyways, big soapbox. I'll step off that. I know I'm pushing my time limit, but I think APTA membership is invaluable. The question, like you said, is what role do they play in unifying that? And TJ and I sort of engaged gently in this discussion the other day for a few moments, but I think where they're going to really wind up being useful is now that different schools of thought are all beginning to believe it's time to unify, it's time to form a brand. I think the APTA could do a really nice job of centralizing that discussion. You've got different schools out there teaching different kinds of Con Ed, different leadership groups. At some point, somebody is going to have to gather those leadership groups together and say, okay, we understand there's unique things about us, and that's good. That makes us valuable in the consumer market. But we need to figure out what is similar about us. We need to get a label on that, and we need to get a branding campaign behind that. And I think that can only be done by a national organization like the APTA. And so I think they're going to have a really strong role in that, as they've had strong roles in so many things over the past few years, direct access campaigns, dry needling, legislative issues. They do a lot, man. I know that sometimes they struggle putting that out there to the public, but they do a lot. They sure as hell do $400 a year worth of work. And I'm beside myself, Trent, that everybody doesn't write that check. They look at that check and say, hopefully everybody else will write that check. That's a really short-sighted approach as a professional.
I think I totally agree with that, and I think I brought that up yesterday during conversations that we were having in terms of PT donating to the PAC. It's just that I feel like a lot of people have been so used to being comfortable with the fact that everyone else is kind of pulling the weight with that, and it's hard to see the value when things are kind of been playing safe, or you haven't been losing too much. So I think that's a great point, and again, I also do not see how people cannot be ABTA members when this is your profession. You've dedicated your life to doing this. Why would you not want to be a part of everything it has to offer? So I get the whole point of needing to see value and all that, but I also believe that there needs to be some skin in the game to kind of create change, and I don't think sitting back on the sidelines is helpful at all. But I know everyone is subjective to their own opinions. So, but I do agree that we definitely need to unite and create a clear, solid brand that we can advertise, and because people are still confused about what we do as physical therapists. There needs to be something that is very clear cut, and I agree that the sections need to come together. Delegates need to come together in the House of Delegates and bring this information to the APTA. Paul Rocker said it this year at Graham Sessions that things don't get done unless it gets passed through the House of Delegates. That's just how APTA works, and it's voted on by the delegates. So I think the people that we need to reach out to mostly are the delegates, the state delegates, and have these issues brought up to APTA leadership, because that's the way they're going to get done, unless someone is willing to kind of go rogue and start a committee within APTA. But I think that we have certain lines that we need to reach through and start doing that immediately to kind of induce change. So
Yeah, and my last word on the APTA, you hear from a lot of people getting kickback, well, I mean, we all know sitting here talking that in every group you're in, right, 10% of the people are going to do 90% of the work, right? You guys have experienced that. It's always the same 10% of the people doing 90% of the work, and that's fine. I'm not asking you to go to meetings. I'm not asking you, my Con Ed company, last year we gave the MPTA $1,000 when they were fighting for direct access, because the only reason we were able to do that is because people came to our courses. We partnered with the MPTA, and we tried to give them what we could. I'm not asking every professional to go to all the MPTA meetings, or I'm sorry, all the APTA meetings. I'm not asking you to do that. I know you're not going to do that. You've never done that, right? You didn't do that in our group project back in school. You're not going to do it now. All we're asking is for you guys to put a little gas in our tank. All right, that's all we're asking. Give us a little bit of money and then go back to being passive for the rest of the year, right? But if you can't even do that, I don't know what to say.
Eric Chaconis, who you work with, Jeff, likes to talk about APTA membership like insurance, saying that you have insurance on your house, you have insurance on your car. Why not have insurance on your profession, being an APTA member?
That's a great way to put it. Everything Eric says is usually a great way to put it.
All right. Well, just to finish up here, Jeff, we have one more request. Great talking with you. You're very passionate, have a ton of great ideas. And we would like to request that you become a PPS member so we can highlight a lot of these ideas and share your story and things in the Impact magazine. So if you're interested, please let us know, and we're trying to promote membership within the private practice section specifically, in addition to APTA membership. So hopefully we can talk shop more about that after the call and get that going.
Yeah, man, absolutely. To be honest, it's never really been something I've considered doing so much with the Con Ed stuff. My brother does a lot of the business stuff on the private practice side. But yeah, Trent, I'd be happy to go forward with that.
Awesome, great stuff. Well, we all have the clinic to get to and patients to see. So any last words, Jeff?
No, man. I mean, I just want to say thanks to you guys for all the constant motivation on social media. We're very humbled by it. I think sometimes we can get fatigued, man. You guys tend to hold that torch up nice and high and bright at the times when we're the most fatigued and most beat down in the clinic. And I tell you guys, keep doing it, because it sparks the energy back up in us. We watch you guys, your energy and where you want to go. It fires it right back up. And so when you get out there, I think a lot of things have went right in the past 5 years. I think direct access has spread. I think autonomy or independence has spread. I think the ball's on the tee. And now you guys just got to walk out and just crush that thing. You guys got to come out with your energy, and you guys got to do what physical therapy has never done in the past 50 years. You got to go on offense, right? We've never been a profession on offense. You guys, and I can feel it from you guys. You're ready to do it. You guys got to get out here. You got to brand our profession. You got to get together with other clinics in town and market to that 89% of people and tell them we are where you need to be. There's no question about it. There's nothing to think about. This is where you have to be, and you have to get here early. You guys got to get on offense. I know you're going to do it. I'm excited watching you guys talk on Twitter, and keep me in the loop as you go forward.
Awesome. Well, thanks a ton, Jeff. You got me fired up to take on the day.
Good, man. Me too.
Thanks again to TJ for getting up so early.
No, you got it.
Talk to you both again soon.
Sounds great, guys. Take it easy.
Thanks, Jeff.
You bet.